one more presentation this evening, and then we'll give Marshall a chance to do a do-over. But first here we're going to go to Mr. William Beecher, one of the current proprietors of the Beecher Fest franchise. Fresh off of his article that he did for Trains magazine, home on the Mineral Range, the story by William Beecher, that is in the June issue of Trains magazine. And I'm not going to scroll through this because I think we're going to see some of these photos here in our presentation from Bill. So Mr. William Beecher Jr., if you would share your screen, do whatever you want to do, give us an introduction, and welcome to our show.
Yeah, okay, guys, I'm sorry. This is just gonna be the lag here. I'm working off my home computer. I changed it from my laptop, which I was gonna do it on, but because of that lag, I ended up doing it with this, and it seemed to work better. But it is what it is, guys. The minimum. You obviously can hear me still, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mineral Range is a modern short line in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan here, guys. It's a combination of a lot of different line sales and abandonments and rationalizations that's created a roughly about a 19-mile long short line. I like a lot of the more obscure railroads, and the Mineral Range is sort of gotten into my focus through some friends. And this is a system map of the current railroad. You can see the railroad starts down here near Landing Junction and the Mineral Range headquarters. And there's two subdivisions. The first goes to the left through Copps, Duncan, over to the Humboldt Mine. And the second is the Pluto subdivision, which goes south through Winthrop Junction National Mine down to Pluto. The original Mineral Range line of this short line was the short 4-mile long Pluto subdivision, and the later addition is to the left here, this Blueberry subdivision. We could go on for hours and hours and hours, and I could tell you that there was a lot of really interesting politics that went through the acquisition of these lines and things like that. But this isn't really the scope of the show because we only have so many minutes, and obviously, but it's a very interesting history. The railroads serves 3 or 4 primary industries. The major one is out here on the left at Humboldt Mine. It's the Humboldt Mine is a transload from Lundin Mining's Eagle Mine, which happens to be way up in here. If you can see my thing moving here, and it's trucked here to Humboldt Mine where it's processed and loaded into gons. It's a 24/7 operation, and it's the only this mine and transload here is the only primary nickel mine in the United States. Now, nickel is used in everything from stainless steel to appliances, technology, batteries, all kinds of other things. I mean, when I say it's the only primary nickel mine in Wisconsin, in the United States, it kind of should throw some interest to people that are that are paying attention at least to the politics of world and trade and things like that. I mean, we need to have resources and exploit resources like this in our country, obviously, because technology is going to go through all the nickel up here and then some in a matter of of years here. So anyways, I met up through a mutual friend. The family, this is a family-owned railroad. It's owned by the Jones family of Michigan. And if you read my Trains article, which is again in the June 2022 issue, I was very vague. They're a very private family. The Clint Jones, who's very, you know, I'm sure some of you guys know him, but he's a very prolific author in the past, a historian. His two sons, Chris and Pete, who I'm very good friends with with Chris, and I've met Pete a couple times. Very nice, very nice people. And you know, with my I'm an engineer for the Canadian National and rail fan, you know, in this area, and just got to know these guys, and they sort of let me in. So then I started kind of kicking around the idea that maybe we should do a little article on these guys and kind of tell the interesting story of the you know, how the timeline and how everything here works. So what you're going to see is some photos here that were taken fairly recently, and you know, and we'll go from there. All right. Mineral Range. They have 3 active locomotives and a 4th currently. They have 2 Jeeps. They have this high nose Jeep 9, and then they have a low nose Jeep 9. This one's of I think it was DM&E, nickel plate, N&W before that, and the other one that you'll see is BN and NP Heritage. These are basically the road locomotives on the road trains that use the Blueberry sub with the loaded guns of nickel and copper, which you can see one of the guns to the left here. And then they use a switch engine and caboose on the Pluto sub because of switching at the other end of the line. It's out of necessity because of lack of running rounds and stuff like that. So if you see Jeeps for the rest of this show, know that it's Blueberry and kind of the mainline sub. If you see an SW or whatever, it's part of the Pluto sub. All right, Mineral Range has laid 20,000 ties in the last couple of years. This is primarily an old LS&I right of way that CNW and LS&I have used to load ore trains in the Humboldt mine and Republic mines over the years. And en route, there's also several mining locations alongside, mainly at Blueberry. There was a mine there that still sometimes loads what's called paint ore. And as you can imagine, it's an ore that is loaded in guns, and it's used as an additive paint. The paint ore comes out of Negaunee, out of an abandoned mine over you know, further west. But track speed is pretty decent. We click along at 20-25 miles an hour with Jeeps and the empties, and you know, it's fairly laid on the earth, so there's some territory to it where trains are moving, sometimes slow uphill, sometimes fast downhill, and it's a fairly easy chase and very straightforward. They start their day in Euclid Yard, which is a joint. I guess today it's still CN, LS&I, and Mineral Range, although LS&I does not run anything over into Euclid Yard anymore. At one time, Euclid Yard was a Sioux Line LS&I CNW yard, but because of mergers and the acquisition of the Duck Creek North lines by the WC, and then eventually CN again, you know, like I said, we could talk about mergers and all kinds of other things in here. But this is the primary interchange point where CN brings these guns in, and Mineral Range grabs them and heads west with them to Humboldt Mine. Here's a roster shot kind of Mineral Range's high nose Jeep 1323. And 1345 obviously is the old BNNP Jeep 9 also. So this is Euclid Yard. The behind the BN locomotive, you can see a signal bridge out there. This was a very CTC intense piece of railroad at one time, with lines heading in multiple directions out of this end of the yard, and that's called landing junction. You know, every end of a Y has a different name, so we could get lost in the names, and because of the mergers and because of consolidations. But believe it or not, this yard and the right of way that leads into this yard was built in the late 60s to combine the the various Northwestern, LS&I, and Sioux line lines in the area because of cave-ins. This whole area is like Swiss cheese underneath with underground mining for ore. And what was happening is all these different right-of-ways crisscrossing the area was causing subsidence in the mines. And so Cleveland Cliffs, who was the primary mine owner in this area, paid with the railroads, and I'm sure there was some state money, but they consolidated all these lines into this yard. And this was the primary interchange point between the Sioux line, the Northwestern, the LS&I. And now today it's just CN and Mineral Range. This is Mr. Jones. This is on the east end of the yard. The last shot was on the west end of the yard. This is Chris Jones, Clint's son. This guy's worked for the CP, for the DNH, for several railroads, for the Wisconsin Northern. He's been all over. He's been a manager, an engineer. Now he's working for his son Clint out of Escanaba, or out of the Marquette area here, obviously. And they're shoving the empty train. They have to shove east out of the yard, and then they head west where the prior signal bridge was. There's a switch, and they go in a different direction. Here he is still shoving out. This is the very east end of the yard. Again, it was all CTC. The Northwestern used to run a train here. I think the last train here, I'll show you a second. This was, I think the interlocking itself here is Ishpeming. It was considered Ishpeming. Yes, and see, here's another shot of Ishpeming. The blacktop in front of the CNW's depot here, in fact, hosted the Northwestern's. What was the last 400 to run up here? I'm sure you guys know what that was, and I'm sure someone could share that. The Peninsula, was it the Peninsula 400? Left here in like 1969, middle of the night. Used to get here at like midnight and leave at 2 in the morning. So it was even though it was a cool place to have a passenger train up until fairly late, it came and left like a thief in the night, you know. This is the Northwestern's yard office, and has the CNW sign on it still. Of course, further down is where the station, where the open part of the station was, where there was a ticket clerk and stuff like that. It's still kind of neat. Really, a lot of things haven't really changed since this was constructed in the late 60s. Now out on the main, he heads back west. The railroad's all track worn authority, from Landing Junction all the way to Humboldt Junction. They have their own dispatcher. The Mineral Range has its own dispatcher that's subcontracted through, I don't know if you guys know Mike McConville. Mike McConville in Janesville, Wisconsin, offers dispatching for short lines and things like that. I think he was part of the Ed Ellis thing, but kind of went out and did his own thing and offers dispatching. So it's kind of neat when you hear these guys get a track warrant and all that. It's the Mineral Range dispatcher in Janesville, Wisconsin, which is kind of interesting. So he heads west. These are empties to be loaded at Humboldt Mine. This is Landing Junction, where he splits off and then heads up out onto the Blueberry sub. Track warrant control starts right here at Landing Junction right here, which is milepost 73.8. The CTC was turned off here in '93 by the WC. Here's an empty train coming west at Humboldt. This is fairly close to the mine. This is near the, I think it's Michigan 59 or 39. I can't remember, 59 or 39 crossing. I like coming up here in fall. I shoot these guys in the LS&I. Oh, excuse me. These guys in the LS&I. It's a beautiful place to be. And kind of like Gordy Smith. It's a great place to be in the fall. We'll continue on here. This is at Humboldt Mine, and the train running around the empties, getting ready to spot in fall. This is the owner, Clint Jones. Again, very prolific author, and I'm going to try and go faster and all that. I had my little my little timer going, but it took us a few minutes here to get this going here. So this is Clint Jones. Guy has just an absolutely interesting, beyond belief life story. He's very private though. And I had to respect that when I wrote the article and all that, but someday, maybe, hopefully, Clint, if you ever see this, we got to work it out. You know, it'd be nice to tell your story too, because it's interesting as hell, and it really needs to be taught. Here's Clint again. I took a little ride with these guys. He stopped his train, and we went down on the bridge at over the Escanaba River. This is a brand new bridge. It was rebuilt in just a couple of years ago by Koppers of Madison, you know, the Thai guys, Koppers, and a local engineering company. It was done under budget and in time. And he was just showing how very proud he was of a lot of the changes. Canadian National has trackage rights for their launch job that goes all the way out towards Keweenaw Bay at Lance, and they run SD60s and some heavier cars and things like that over this part of the line. So, you know, it definitely, after years of ore trains and mineral range and CN trains on trackage rights, it takes a beating. Sometimes there's 4 or 5 trains a day out here. So it can be, you know, they have to put the money in the plant. Clint posed for me as he pulled the train up over the Escanaba River Bridge. And we're just cooking along here. He's a super guy and just super knowledgeable. I mean, everything we went by here, there was mine here, there was mine there, there was this here, this connected here, just a super knowledge. And I mean, again, I wish I had more time to, you know, explain like all the fine intricacies that he, you know, that he was willing to share about this, because it is a really history rich area. Here's a loaded train coming back. It just kind of shows the territory. These loaded cars, you know, may not seem like a huge train, but the value of each one of these guns is about $250,000. And there's riders of not only nickel in these cars, but there's a lot of copper. There's elements of gold and some other rare minerals that are undisclosed. And it's fairly interesting how when these cars are sold for smelting and things like that, there's quite a bit of dealing on how the other rider minerals that are collected are distributed as part of the rate of the car and that. Currently, the cars are, most of these loaded guns are going to Sarnia, Ontario, and they go via Fond du Lac, Kirkyard, through the Port Huron terminal over to Toronto before changing directions and going back to Sarnia, instead of going up through the Sioux and across the top of Canada. It's just the way CN wants to run the train. And because of the Algoma Central not being a through route now that it's part of Watco, it might be interesting to see if the routing of these cars changed back more to a northerly routing as opposed to going around like Michigan and things like that. Here's the loaded train coming back. These are all empty cars in the foreground, but these are loads pulled by the Jeeps into Landing Junction and Euclid Yard again. This is just kind of an arty shot out of the lead of the Jeep 7. Chris Jones makes some air on some guns. We're going to shove down the Pluto sub and just take a few looks at the Pluto sub, which heads south down towards National Mine, Winthrop Junction, and Pluto. Chris is a great guy and quite a professional, and has become, like I said, a good friend of mine, and is a really interesting guy too. Clint just came out, and we took a few pictures with him on the porch here. And this is on the Pluto sub at just what was called Sioux Junction. Again, it was this junction connected a Sioux line with a CNW line here, and has quite a bit of signaling and signage still to this day. This is the normal Pluto local heading back towards Pluto, and he usually shoves up caboose first from Pluto, and Pluto is a distributor of blasting agents for Tilden and for basically for all the mining in the area. It's ammonium nitrate and tank cars. So what he'll do is he'll shove out of Pluto caboose first up to Euclid. They'll do their work, and then they'll pull back with the caboose and the engine south on the Pluto sub. This is just an old approach signal for Sioux Junction at Winthrop Junction. That's Sioux Junction. That's the approach for this signal right here. And this is the Pluto sub. It's had a lot of work done. It cuts through a lot of water. What's interesting is a 1.7% grade on this line, just beyond those trees there. So what it lacks in length of 4 or 5 miles long, it sure is steep as heck. And they treat it with quite a bit of respect, as you can imagine, especially when the snow gets into hundreds of inches at some points, you know. Oops, sorry. And here's another shot on the Pluto sub. We just took a little tour with the Jeeps, and I just kind of like the color and the water of this scene here. This is the Winthrop Junction, or Winthrop Junction is again another junction. Those are mineral range ballast cars. They're old CNW heritage cars that the mineral range uses as for ballast cars. It's like one of 4 or 5 freight cars that they own. You know, everything else is lease cars and things like that. This is a new engine that was bought by the mineral range. It's an SW13 that it's an old Paducah rebuild. That the CP ILSX SW that you previously saw in a prior is leased. This has been bought by Clint Jones, so this is going to be the potential locomotive for the Pluto sub when it's finally put in service, and to save money on lease fees and all that of the Mineral Range Railroad. And this is one of the final images. This is again at the east end of Ishpeming Yard and Euclid Yard, and this is the CN job that has come off the Mineral Range main line and is heading towards the LS&I and further interchange with the CN system. And this is the train coming out of Escanaba, coming northbound across Goose Lake on the south side of Eagle Mills and things like that. And we could go for hours here and there. I just had to show how the interchange and all that works. I have hours and days worth of video footage and photos of the area and all that, but for this is the first time I've ever done a Zoom thing like this, so pardon my my lack of knowledge on how to get through all this stuff, but and that's it. Any questions?
Wonderful, wonderful program, Bill. I do have a question, and regarding the guns that they use with the covers, they all had some placards on them, 3077, which is some other material. So you really don't know what's in there, and is it really hazardous?
Well, it is technically, because the way they do a quick refine. I would say a refine at Humboldt Mine, because they still just transloaded into these GONs, but there's an additive to it of like sulfur dioxide or something like that. And technically it's hazardous, but you don't have to buffer these things. They're, you can place them next to an engine. It's not like a tank car of ammonium nitrate or a tank car of an LP gas or anything like that. So yeah, it is. It does count towards key train status, depending on how many you have. But that's strictly semantics with federal regulations and stuff like that. It's not like something that could explode or anything. It's more than anything, it might be like a water hazard or something if you were to dump one in a river or something like that.
An irritant of some sort.
Correct.
Well, once again, Bill Beecher, thank you again. This is his story. It's in the June issue of Trains magazine. And anybody else with questions for Bill?
Bill?
Hi.
Two questions. The last one you just showed, that was a former Northwestern line in the fog with the trees.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
absolutely. That's the Northwestern line.
Jim Strivens had pictured, he had photographed the Peninsula 400. It used to go through there at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
He,
Okay.
I had seen a picture of that, not in the book, but I've seen a picture. Second, this guy Clint, was he a former Northwestern engineer?
No, he was a brakeman for the CNW. He's
Okay.
worked for everyone from the Milwaukee Road to the CNW, and then he went to the Wisconsin Central pretty early in the WC era. He lasted all the way to CN, and around when CN took over, they didn't want that Pluto sub, so he left. He was a train master up there and started the mineral range originally as the Pluto sub, and worked that exclusively. His 4 miles, there's 2-3 customers on there, and you know, from there he's growing now with CN selling more track, you know, and rationalizing some of the lines in northern Wisconsin, Michigan. There might be room. They might, you know, there could be an expansion by his, you know, his group and his family. They're an interesting sort, and you know, they know. What's amazing is they know the lay of the land. They know the business. They know the people. They know, you know, that traffic that they haul wasn't going to go by rail, but it took Clint figuring out how to get it on rail and hit the resources of where we could transload, or where this could happen, or where this could happen. You know, these big railroads, they don't have the resources to know how to connect all the dots, but Clint does, and he could probably connect every dot in that area. And I don't want to, you know, give away too much or anything like that. I like I said, he's very sensitive and he's very private, but you know, it's amazing his what, you know, what he could do, you know.
Yeah.
And I support, you know, I hope he does well, you know, and he's doing great. Now, that Humboldt mine where they do load, I think it's only permitted for another 4 or 5 years before it stops, and either they need new permits or, you know, I mean, so you know, it's not going to last forever either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Great show. Good show.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
show. All right.
Question?
Sure.
Yeah, for particularly the long-time Wisconsin chapter members, the name Clint Jones it's ringing a bell. Did he at one time own a locomotive
Oh yeah.
that was maybe down at Janesville?
Yeah, well, he was a part owner in that RSC3 or whatever it was over there at Baraboo for the longest time.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm
Bob
remembering.
Halsey, and yeah, he's got, you know, or he's had assets everywhere. He's owned more than one short line in the past. Some have folded up, you know, some he sold off, some were, you know, it's just he's been around a long time. And if you're a longtime reader of Trains magazine, Clint Jones is quite the prolific author in the David P. Morgan era of the 60s. I mean, there's quite a few articles out there that were very substantial about logging, mining, anything up in the North Woods, but he is quite the prolific author.
Yeah, you've got to get the rest of that story.
Well, we're gonna try.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you all enjoyed it, guys. You know, I'm sorry that there's a learning curve here and how this all works, but eventually we'll figure it out.
No problem at all, Bill. Thank you again for
Thank you,
your
guys. Appreciate
your
it.
talent and your presentation and your willingness to share it. Anything else for yes, that's it. Applause for Bill. In fact, applause for all of our presenters tonight, because just saw a comment come across from Bob Gallegos. These were 4 wonderful programs, and you know, I thank you guys for doing them.